Welcome back to those who are joining in over the virtual airwaves on Zoom. And so I just wanted to say a few words again about the meditation practice. That meditation is a way of gradually getting the mind into become centered and grounded in the body, and taking a note of how the body and mind are intimately connected, and that the mind actually operates through the nervous system. Nobody knows anything about physiology. And so that's why the importance of learning how to keep an erect posture, because that's really where all the nervous system vibrations are coming through the senses, going to the brain, where we then register perception, which then triggers off our thoughts. So to have those neural pathways, open in their optimal condition, it helps one to be alert and mindful. That's why people get slow, they get lost in their thoughts, because their mind isn't alert enough to notice the thoughts that are welling up from the unconscious mind. Because even if the head is just down a little bit or slightly slouched, even a half an inch, it makes a big difference on the clarity and transmission of neuro data and so on. So that's why the Buddha always recommended sitting straight. And even Mahamoggallana, who was one of the Buddha's chief disciples, and was an arahant and had mastered the psychic power. Even the Buddha saw him, kind of nodding one day, says, "Wake up, Moggallana, wake up." So even people who've been meditating a long time, even myself, once in a while, I notice that. But it doesn't mean you're not really alert. But anyway, so first getting centered and grounded, and then gradually opening up to the flow. So I'm going to kind of give a last sort of guided meditation on that, just to try to reinforce that in your understanding, if you find that helpful for your practice, then you can use that. Some people say, no, I just sit down, I go directly into samadhi. Okay, great. But for others who may not be that super advanced or ready, then we'll still have a lot of hindrances. Then the gradual approach might help. Okay, so just go ahead and get in your sitting posture. Try to keep the back and the head in a straight line. Just gently close the eyes. Just bring your attention down to feel the buttocks pressing the seat. Feel that hard contact, earth element vibration, flesh of the body pressing, hard floor, cushion. Just feel some sensations. Feel your left buttock, your right buttock. And just remind yourself that you're sitting right now. This body is sitting. Let the awareness kind of move down your legs and around the knees, down into the lower leg, eventually the feet and toes. Sort of feeling the shape or how the legs are bent underneath. Focusing on the feet, it feels many different little sensations. The heel, arching, the toes, the socks touching the skin of the feet. Ability to notice so many sensations. The feet. And now let the awareness move up to feel the hands and fingers, where they touch together or touch your legs. Try to feel the outline of your thumbs and fingers, subtle pulsations. And letting the awareness kind of move up the arms, the forearms, up to the elbows, and then the upper arms. Just feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Feel the clothing touching the skin of the shoulders and arms. Just feel anything on the surface of the skin or underneath the skin. Just the pulsations. And let the awareness move into the center of the body to feel the stomach and chest area. You start in the stomach area and move up the chest, feel the different sensations. So many different sensations can be noticed. The breathing, the expanding and contracting, friction, the clothing against the skin, stomach or chest pain. You take a couple of deep, slow breaths. Feel that more exaggerated expanding and contracting of the abdomen and chest. Now try to feel some sensations on your back, starting in the lower back, moving the attention upwards, just the touch of the clothing against the skin of your back pain, prickling sensation. If you notice the back is slouching, gently straighten up the back and the spine. Then feel your shoulder blades embedded in the upper back. And the shoulders. Then feel the outer neck. Moving inside the throat. Be aware of any urge to cough or swallow. Moving up to feel your lower jaw, the teeth and the gums and the lower jaw. See if you can feel or imagine the lower jaw where it connects to the skull underneath the ears. And feel the tip of the chin. And feel some subtle sensation at the point of the chin. And feel the lips touching together, the upper lip touching the lower lip. Any sensation of dryness or moistness. And again, feel the tongue laying in the mouth. You might move the tongue a little bit, touch different places in your mouth just to feel those sensations. The raw tactile sensation. Then feel the nose, outer nose there in the middle of the face. And see if you can feel the subtle touch of air as it's moving through the nostrils. Focus inside the nostrils. You might feel a cool sensation on the in-breath and a warm sensation on the out-breath. Take a couple of deeper breaths. You can't feel it. And now feel the eyes resting in the sockets, and the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Sort of gaze on the eyeball. Might feel a subtle eye movement with the blood pulsing in the capillaries of the eyeballs or eyelids. Relax the eyes. We have a lot of tension in the eyes because of the greed to look at things, the greed to see. Eyes are always being stressed. You might see some color, light, or patterns, or an image. And from this point behind the eyes, let the awareness expand a little bit. Try to feel the outline of the whole body. By now you should have awakened sensations in all those different places. You should be able to feel that the vibrations and that outline of the body. Sensations from the buttocks and the feet, hands, arms, chest, head. Just try to hold that sensation image in the mind's eye. Just sitting, sitting, sitting. Just feeling that awakened web of the nervous system. The awakened awareness, present moment awareness. This breathing body is like the nest of a bird. Whenever the bird's not flying around or doing something, it comes back to rest in its nest. So our mind is like the bird. But it's always wanting to fly out to search for food, search for sound, stimulation, other things, getting involved in greed, hatred, delusion. When it gets tired, it comes back to the nest to rejuvenate. This body with all of its sensations is like, the electric current or charge for the mind. When the mind's just resting in the body, feeling all these natural, pure life force vibrations, then it gets charged up with the awareness. Okay, now we can take a few deep, slow breaths to help to ground the mind more firmly in the center of the body. And after breathing in, hold the air in the lungs. Squeeze all the oxygen out into the bloodstream. And feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. That's the real living process. Keeps this body alive, breath coming in, the heart pumping oxygen out to all the cells of the body. Just breathing in, letting go of the past and the future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Breathing in, feeling the body in the body. Breathing out, feeling the body in the body. Now we're going to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 in even a more close, precise concentration. So with the next expanding in breath, count 1. Feel the pause. And the contracting out breath, also count 1. The next expanding in breath, 2. Contracting out breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath, 5. In breath, 6. Out breath, 6. In breath, 7. Out breath, 7. In breath, 8. Out breath, 8. In breath, 9. Out breath, 9. In breath, 10. Out breath, 10. And discontinue the counting. Discontinue any controlled breathing. Just let the breathing return to its shorter breath. But continue to feel it. Let's continue to feel the subtler, shorter, expanding and contracting movements in the abdomen, rib cage, the chest. Try to feel those points where the clothing rubs against the skin of the abdomen, stomach, or chest. So it expands and contracts. Your concentration point. And just know when the breath is coming in. And know when the breath is going out. You know it by feeling it. You try to feel the 4 phases of each breath cycle. The expanding in-breath, the brief pause, the contracting out-breath, the brief pause. It's called the whole breath body. One complete cycle of breathing. Just be like a scientist sitting in the laboratory, looking down through the microscope. Just noticing all those different little sensations. Of the breathing. You can make these brief mental notes to help you remember, if you find it helpful. Just in, sitting, out, sitting. It's the ongoing, continuous, present moment of the body. We're just sitting, breathing, sitting, breathing. That's your applied and sustained thought to remember the present moment. In the brief pauses between the breaths, feel the outline of the sitting body, present moment awareness. Even while you're feeling the breathing process, you'll be able to notice other sensations coming and going around and through that breathing awareness. Touch of clothing on other parts of the skin, or other body sensations, tingling sensations. prickling sensations, aches or pains, body movement. Just coming and going side by side with the breathing. It's contemplating the body in the body. It's feeling the breathing body within the larger sitting body. It's called integrated awareness. It's the life process. Parallel universe just beneath the skin. But at the same time, be alert for mental activity that's trying to steal your attention away. If you get caught up in thoughts, recognize it as thinking. Gently let go of the thoughts, or apply the appropriate antidotes for the hindrances. Always keep coming back to reground in the breathing body. And there's two streams of the living process going on side by side, concurrently. Stream of the physical life, breathing and body sensations, sound, and the stream of the mental activity, recalling the past or future, emotions, memories, urges that may be connected with the body, maybe not. So many body sensations, what trigger off our thoughts, pain. Just try to observe that body-mind connection. If you have pain, the desire to move, which is the thought causing the body to move. Just watch this process of the body and mind like you were sitting in the balcony of a movie theater, watching the movie. There's that distance between you and the movie. Just create this onlooking, detached awareness to this breathing body and the mind tripping out, doing all kinds of things. This is material form. This is pleasant, painful sensation. This is perception. This is volition or agitation. This is the I, me, mind, consciousness. Just keep turning up the power of the mental microscope to notice subtler, finer details, interactions of the body and mind. Understanding its conditioned impermanence. The karmic conditioning affecting that process. It's part of the investigation of Dhamma. Especially be alert for how quickly certain sensations, sounds arise and vanish through that space of awareness. To keep up with the flow of impermanence without getting stuck on any particular thought or sensation. If you find yourself totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost. Find the body sitting on the floor here and now. Take a few deep, slow breaths to reground awareness in the body. Re-enter the flow of present moment awareness. In, sitting, out, sitting, breath by breath, moment by moment. And if you have a good concentrated awareness and detachment, Just try to feel the body and mind as an empty house with nobody home to answer the call, knocking on the doors and windows. But there is a sensitive microphone and a seeing eye camera in the house that knows but doesn't know, cannot react or think about things. Just the pure reflective nature, present moment awareness. Just allow that last subtle trace of I, me, or mine that may be there. Just let it fade away, dissolve to the ocean of awareness. Sabbi sankhara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atene bindati dukkhi Yesamaggo visuddhiya dukkhapatta ca nidukkha bhayapatta ca nibbaya Sokapatta ca nisoka Hontu sabbi pipanino. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. And may the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. In this way, may all beings live with mindfulness and wisdom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Again, take a deep breath, stretch the head back, pull the hands against the knees, arch the spine. And lift the head up with the out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebra. And lift the chin up level on an in-breath. Relax on the out-breath. Now, friends, take a couple minutes break if you need to use the restroom or stand up and stretch your legs for a couple minutes, and then we'll come back for the Dhamma talk. An end, but a retreat or the meditation practice, in general is simply a training ground for being able to bring awareness, into the daily life. Now we all know that the Buddha's teaching, the Buddha had an experience, right? He was meditating and he had an experience, but then he had to put that experience into language if he was to try to explain it to others. In fact, when he had his enlightenment experience, he was thinking, oh my gosh, this Dhamma, what I experienced, it's so profound and deep, and ordinary people, they're not going to understand me, And he thought it would be too tiresome to try to get people to understand this Dhamma, so he was disinclined to even go out and teach, according to the traditional story. And but anyway, eventually he, the Brahmas and so on and others encouraged him to, go out and teach anyway, even though it's true the majority of people won't understand, but there'll be a few people who will be able to. So anyway, so he had to formulate it into a language, because what he experienced was a formless experience that is very difficult to try to really explain in a language. So anyway, he did his best and explained it in terms of the Four Noble Truths, or that about suffering, the cause of suffering, that suffering can be brought to an end, and the way leading to the way to live, think, and meditate that will bring suffering to an end. So the Buddha was a little bit different from other religious philosophers of the time, or not of the time even, but also of the modern day, that, they didn't talk about, the world being created by a creator, and they were having to obey the creator's commands or rules, otherwise you'll get punished or suffer. So he was more directly interested in the mind and how people create their suffering, and how suffering can be brought to an end. And that doesn't matter whether there's a God or it's not the God, it doesn't matter. The mind still operates the same for every person in its conditioned nature and so on. So, really the Buddhist teaching was about the mind. So anyway, the theme of living and dying with awareness, that's really the whole practice of the Dhamma, as we've already mentioned. And hopefully by now you've experienced that, and again, the mind is the forerunner of all conditions. That means the consciousness and the accumulated unconscious tendencies. They're basically what create our idea of the world. But if one, acts or speaks with an impure mind, then suffering follows. If one acts or speaks with a pure mind, then happiness follows. So these natural laws. But it all depends on the right understanding. And so, in the Noble Eightfold Path, it's comprised of, the right understanding and the right action, or the sila, and the concentration. But everything depends on how you believe. So when a baby is born, it doesn't really have any beliefs. His mind is more or less like a blank slate, although we do know that it does have from the past life its propensities and so on, but they're latent. And so it's directly more influenced by how it's raised up. So the parents will teach it a certain language. Maybe you didn't have that language in a past life, but because the baby has no choice, it learns another language perhaps. It learns the various customs and so on of the environment it finds itself in. But anyway, and so it's programmed more or less. And it's fed what to believe. So if you were brought up in a certain country with a certain religion, usually they will teach you that religion or how to believe. And for the most part, except for very few exceptions, the people get conditioned in that. And so their beliefs are what condition their thoughts. So the way that you believe, let's say philosophical or religious beliefs, ideological beliefs, whatever, then that's the way you're going to think. And the way you think is the way you're going to speak. And the way you speak is the way you're going to act in the world. And the way you act is going to also condition how you earn your living to a large part. Maybe not all the time, but anyway, the livelihood. And then how you act is depending on or all that, how you believe and then how you create the karma is going to affect the mind or the main factors in the conditioning. And then the right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration are developments of the higher mind. So most people are brought into the world and they're just following the habits, the beliefs, the thoughts, the speech, the actions of a particular country they're brought in. And for many people, they never get out of that. It's very important to have the right understanding, because most people just keep recycling after the right action and the livelihood. They don't go on to develop their mind in mindfulness, concentration, or wisdom, or applying the right efforts. But in the Buddha's, in the Dhamma teaching, then the Buddha went beyond just the repetition of cultural and cyclic habit patterns to develop the higher mind. So anyway, in the Eightfold Path, the right understanding basically means understanding the laws of nature. And the most important of those are that, the law of karma, with those little formulas I mentioned at the beginning, the law of gravity and Newton's law of every reaction has an equal and opposite reaction. So you can see that there's, some aspects of the Dhamma fit in quite closely with, even, some laws of science and physics and so on. So based on that, the law of karma, if you act with greed, hatred, and delusion, it brings suffering. So following that train of understanding, right? Then what should be the right thought? You have to think according to what you believe. So that's why the right thought is specifically the thought of letting go, or the thought of non-greed. So if you believe that greed, hatred, and delusion, ego-centered delusion, is the cause of suffering, because that's what right understanding is, at least in the Dhamma, because right understanding is defined by the Buddha himself as understanding suffering, the cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the path leading to the cessation of suffering. And within that comes every other truth that you could ever imagine. So everything is contained within the Four Noble Truths if you examine it and investigate it to its deepest levels. So then you have to go on thinking about it. Because you can read some books about Dhamma or hear some lectures on Dhamma and say, oh, that's cool, yeah, karma cool, nibbana cool, but then you don't go on thinking about it. That's what happened to me. When I first heard the Dhamma as an intellectual study in junior college, and I wrote a term paper on Buddhism. The teacher even praises, my knowledge of Buddhism. But it was just an intellectual exercise at the time. And I didn't go on thinking about it. So I went back and I, got caught up in greed, hatred, and delusion, and drugs and stuff. And it didn't help me. So that right understanding, at least at the time, did not help me much because I didn't go on thinking about it. Because at that time in 1971, there was no Dharma centers around really, and hardly any books at all on Buddhism or Dhamma. You really had to go to a research university or something to find something like that. So anyway, that's why the importance of right thought, that you have to go on, you have to think about, what you heard or your beliefs. You have to think accordingly. So the thought of non-greed, that means you think about how this greed and having so many possessions is a lot of worry and a lot of bother, and they don't really bring all that much benefit. People hoarding all this stuff and just wanting more. Greed can never be satisfied. So you think about renunciation, the thought of renunciation. And that doesn't mean becoming a monk or a nun. It could, but on a more relative level, it means just simplifying your life. I like to use the term simplifying your life. Downsizing, right? That's the new catchword, downsize. So, once all your kids are out of the house, you don't need a 7-room house or anything. And it takes a lot of work to keep it up and clean it and protect all these things that you don't even use. So, downsize. You sell it and buy yourself a smaller place. So that's just one example. So anyway, but it's the thought of, learning how to live more simply so the mind isn't so burdened with, which one of my 50 shirts am I going to wear today? Or which pair of my 20 shoes am I going to wear? And I'm going to match up this with that and all these other things, and you stumble over and you can't find stuff because it's all buried beneath other things and you waste a lot of time. So you clean out the clutter so that the life is a little bit more simple. You don't have to think so much about making all these choices or when a retreat comes up, I want to go on that retreat. And then, you sign up for the retreat and 2 days before the retreat, one of your 7 cats gets sick and, I can't go to the retreat now. I have to stay home. I have to give it some injections for its whatever. I've heard all these before. That's why I know it. And so downsizing means learning how to, pare down and simplify the life so that you will have more time to just rest in the present moment and not always, what do I have to clean today? What do I have to protect today? And so on. So that's really the meaning of renunciation, not necessarily becoming a monk or a nun. That may be well and good for certain people, but not for most people. And then the thought of non-cruelty and non-ill will. Actually, the non-ill will comes first. That means the thought of metta, in compassion. So thinking how much poison it is in your mind, always be harboring ill will towards these people. They beat me, they robbed me, they did this to me, they did that to me. It's painful, these kind of thoughts. And then the thought of non-cruelty. Because you always have to put yourself in the other's shoes. When people are cruel to me, like using bad speech or body language or other things, naturally you get hurt, right? So everyone else also reacts in the same way.
So it's really like following the golden rule in terms of the ill will and the compassion. We practice that out in the world. So anyway, those are the thoughts, thinking about Dhamma. And apart from those three specific categories of thought, just thinking about the Dhamma, thinking about what you've read or your right understanding, and being alert in the daily life, how karma, you're getting the results of your karma all the time back to you. Now, greed can never be satisfied. So you reflect and you think about these things and more. So anyway, that's the right thought. So, the categories of right understanding and right thought form the larger umbrella group of wisdom, what's considered the two path factors connected with wisdom. But wisdom has three levels: the intellectual wisdom, then the deeper understanding that comes through reflecting and observing how things work, and then finally the wisdom, the insights that come when you're doing meditation, although it could come at other times too, the deep, profound kind of intuitive insights, especially about not self and so on, and about the nature of suffering. So, Dana Maniso Abad.
Yeah.
You can listen to Dhamma talk for a while. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So the right, the right thinking. And so the way that you believe is the way that you're going to think. And then what are you going to do? So far, that's mostly intellectual. Now, what are you going to do? According to the belief and according to the thought, control your tongue. That means following right speech, knowing that our speech brings us a lot of suffering too, using wrong speech. So therefore we practice the right speech. It is not just abstaining from telling lies, as people repeat using the 5 precepts, but it involves all 4 types of the right speech. Avoid slandering and tale-bearing against other people, even if it's true. And a harsh speech, swear words and things like that, or even, and then the frivolous speech. That's a little bit harder to sort of control in this day and age, but at least those first 3, the one about telling tales about others, it's the that kind of thing. There's a lot of that going on in politics. So anyway, then after the right speech comes the action, what we do with the body. So the 3 right actions are avoiding from physically harming people, either with sticks or weapons, or killing them. The actual precept means killing, but actually you can extend it to mean also physically harming others with that willful, motivated by anger and so on. And then stealing, we do that with the body too, so, usually. But it can also involve stealing with your mind, stealing other people's ideas and things like that, but taking things that, don't belong to you, that would hurt others. And then the sexual misconduct, using the body to physically abuse and harm other people. Because this is where most of the really heavy karma comes in, with your speech and actions, those negative actions that are motivated by selfish lust and desire and ill will and hatred and clinging on to our opinions and our views so tightly that we would fight others for it or harm others. because this is where probably 90% of the heavy results in our life come back to us as guilt, worry, remorse, and fear, not just the physical things too, but because we will hold these guilt, worry, remorse, and fear in our mind when we know that people are looking out to catch us, and the mind will never gain any deep peace. So that the right action. And then the livelihood, gaining your livelihood by having a job that wouldn't cause you to break any of those other precepts. That wouldn't cause harm to others. So the common, well-known wrong occupations for a Dhamma practitioner would be, not to raise animals when you know they're going to be slaughtered, or dealing in poisons that can kill people or others, and alcohol and other types of vices that just, sort of increase people's addictions to various things, whether it's gambling, sex, drugs, alcohol, whatever, any type of, addiction to anything, throws the mind off of balance. So anyway, but nowadays there's a lot of gray areas between what is the right and wrong livelihood, or sometimes people are forced in to do things that they might compromise their morals, right? Let's see, anybody who's been a secretary in a big corporation, were you sometime asked to fix the books when you didn't want to?
No, but now, like, I work for FDA, so you see the scientists trying to find a cure for COVID, and there's a lot of animal lab.
But not only that, but there's also, these companies that don't tell the truth about their products, like tobacco. Oh, they won't hurt anybody, right? And all these other things, and these OxyContin scam, that cause so many people to get addicted. So all that involves in the lying and cheating, scheming because of greed. To sell more things, people will be forced to do that. Not forced, but they'll. Anyway, so I know you all know about that. So anyway, that's the importance of the right livelihood. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to go home and sleep. And then to have a clear conscience. So to be able to go home and say, I didn't hurt a fly today. In terms of doing any type of, uncool things or any of those things that I sort of mentioned. Okay. So even if one just went that far, if one could practice those things, that would go a very long way for reducing a lot of suffering in your life. Because I mentioned before, the results of those karmic actions of wrong speech and wrong action in livelihood, they probably comprise 80 or 90% of the types of worries and mental suffering that you would have, as well as a lot of some physical suffering too, if people come back and want to get revenge on you. But then the other part, and so a lot of other, religions or philosophies have similar type of, moral guidelines, don't they? A lot of them do. Maybe it's slightly in different ways, but it's kind of, it's there, But what distinguishes the Dhamma, the Buddhist Dhamma, is the right effort, the right mindfulness, and the right concentration. That the Buddha taught us that we can change these unwholesome things in our mind. And we can change the way that we believe, the way that we think, the way that we speak, and the way that we act, that will be in more harmony with the laws of nature. But this is the problem with Western science before 1950. They believed that the brain was hardwired and you couldn't change the way you think. At least that was the old school thinking. And they didn't know about this, neuroplasticity and stuff like that. These are kind of new concepts coming up in the last 50, 60 years. So, but of course, the Buddha and other ancient sages and so on, they knew this was a possibility, that we can change the way that we believe and think. We can change our mind. We can rewire our mind. It's not hardwired. Now, it's hardwired if you are still sunk in ignorance and you don't make any effort to try to change. You're just going to keep repeating the same old habits that you learned from childhood. And even up to the day you die. Some people are 80, 90 years old and they're still harboring all kinds of these negative thoughts and other stuff towards others, or actions and so on. Some, of course, naturally, when people get older, they mellow out to a certain extent, but still. So anyway, the right effort, the right mindfulness and right concentration are really the group called the bhavana. So all the 8 steps of the Eightfold Path are divided into 3 umbrella groups of wisdom, skillful conduct, and concentration. So the word concentration is used, but I don't like to use it so much because it confuses people, the concentration. They think it just means concentrating your mind. There's a lot more to it than that. It's about applying the right effort. And to be effort, you have to have mindfulness. So right effort and mindfulness comes even before concentration. And it means the effort to abandon the unwholesome thoughts, if they come into your mind, to abandon them. That means to drive them out. But how do you drive them out? By cultivating the opposite types of thoughts. So to drive out a negative thought of anger, you would try to replace it with a thought of metta. So how am I going to hurt this person? How can I be friendly to this person? Or have compassion. So that's where you apply the 3 types of thoughts to combat these negative intentions. Their effort to think about non-greed, the effort to think about non-ill will and non-cruelty, or the Dhamma in general. So it takes a lot of effort to do that because the mind is so entrenched in its habits. And that's why you won't succeed, probably, unless you're practicing mindfulness. That means right effort by itself probably is not going to succeed unless you start practicing meditation. That means formally developing mindfulness and then concentration. But in this way, you develop concentration by practicing mindfulness, as I already mentioned in yesterday's talk, I think. Because in all the lists that you find in the Dhamma, in this Eightfold Path, concentration comes at the end. And in the 7 factors of enlightenment, concentration is number 6. And in the spiritual faculties, mindfulness also comes before concentration. Faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So it shows very clearly that, mindfulness, that you actually gain, without being mindful, it's not likely you're going to gain concentration because of the hindrances will still be there. So the right effort and the mindfulness helps to remove the hindrances. And then automatically you'll gain concentration, really. As I already mentioned, concentration is simply unbroken mindfulness. So, but anyway, being able to dwell in those levels of jhanic tranquility and so on, or just the present moment awareness. Because that itself is a healing power, and that penetrates deep into the unconscious mind. See, all of our habits and sankharas are in the unconscious mind, and you can't get to them in the ordinary state because it's too difficult. And so that's why it's the meditation practice helps you to bring your attention below the surface of the conscious mind and to start being aware of the activities that are going on before you've erupted into activity and reaction. So it helps you to get down at the root of those and to see how all these unconscious aggregates and so on, how the aggregates, when they come up and how they're interconnected, and especially the ego. So anyway, the right effort, the right mindfulness and right concentration, that is the the group of the concentration. So usually it's usually when people talk about it, they usually mention the sila, samadhi, and panya, and they say cultivate it in that order. You have to practice sila before you can get samadhi. But actually, you need panya first. You need at least the intellectual wisdom, because that's what kind of pricks your interest. Because especially people brought up in this country pre-1970, there was no Dhamma available really, unless you were in a university or lived in New York and Chinatown, went to a Chinese Buddhist temple or something. But otherwise, there was hardly no Dhamma available. So the only way you might have heard it was even then it wasn't too much, but now, there's more books and people, start talking about the Dhamma. You might go to a friend's house, to smoke some marijuana or something, and you see a teaching, Dhammapada. What the heck is that? Open it up. Mind is the forerunner of all conditions. What? Well, so anyway, you read a book on the Dhamma or hear a talk and you go, wow, where's this been all my life, And so it gets your interest and then you start studying. And it's usually that which then gets you motivated to then want to actually start practicing. I know that's what happened in my own life, but as I said, even though I had that intellectual understanding in the college, I couldn't apply it right then because there was no groups available, and I kept on doing those, just being in ignorance again. But a couple of years later then, that initial understanding of the college course didn't go to waste. It just went dormant underneath. And then after I nearly killed myself in a couple of years of drug taking and all kind of other things, I was able to recall that interest in the Dhamma, and then other conditions were right that I was able to then really apply it and, sort of save myself, so to speak. But anyway, so the wisdom really should come first. So I like to say it as wisdom, self-control, or skillful conduct, and the meditation. Again, recalling those three levels of wisdom. The intellectual wisdom gets you to actually start meditating and reflecting, and then eventually that leads to getting the deep intuitive insights and realizations in meditation, or even out of meditation. So, those three categories of, I'll just say it in a normal way, the sila, samadhi, and panya, that the sila, so most Buddhists, they try to observe the precepts, 5 precepts, 8 precepts, 10 precepts, and so on. That means these are just the guidelines of how to minimize your negative actions. So you're already familiar with those. But it's like having a policeman in your mind. You have to recite them every day. I know in Sri Lanka, sometimes people recite 5 precepts every day, right? Is that right? Yes, no, Manisha? So anyway, at least, and every time people go to the temple, the monks give them 5 precepts, you know. And I was living in Sri Lanka one time, meditating in a little kuti up on a hill by the ocean. And there was a village a little ways away. And one man there, he liked to drink toddy, arak. And so he used to come in the afternoon, in a drunken stupor. Bhante, I'm little, give me 5 precepts. Because he just drank some liquor. So in the beginning, I gave him 5 precepts. Then the next day he came and did the same thing. You take the precept, they go break it. They want to come again, give him the precepts every day. But anyway, so we have to remind ourselves all the time because we tend to forget easy, especially in the midst of some passion or some, tense situations. We may, say some wrong speech or some actions and so on. So anyway, so the sila is like having a policeman in your mind. Because when the lights go out in a city, the policeman comes out to direct the traffic, right? So people normally would obey if the policeman is standing there. You stop, you come this way, and you stop, right? What happens when a policeman goes for lunch? Then everybody just starts driving on their own, running the red light, taking illegal turns, and so on. So the same way, if we don't have a code of ethics to follow and keep reminding ourselves of it all the time, then we'll forget. So that's why it's like having a policeman in your mind. When the policeman is there, everybody, follows because they're afraid of getting a ticket. So the same way with this one-eyed bandit down the road, the traffic camera. People know it's there. They, on purpose, even myself, on purposely slow down, go by because we're afraid of, spending having a $40 ticket. But then as soon as you're past that camera, whoosh. So anyway, so the sila is there to, that helps us to curb our physical actions. But the mind may still want to do it. That's why following sila is not enough, because it's sort of enforced behavior. You're forcing yourself to not kill, lie, cheat, steal, and so on. But you might still like to do that. You might still like to tell a little fib on your job application or whatever else it is, but if I get found out, then I'll get in trouble and force yourself not to do it. That's why sila is not enough. It's like, let's say you're meditating and then you got some insect starts crawling on you. And you feel this agitation, this desire to, maybe it was a mosquito. You're thinking, oh my gosh, I'll get, Nile virus or malaria or whatever. Luckily it's not COVID-19, but. So you raise your hand up, about ready to, but then find, panatipata veramani. You force yourself not to slap the mosquito. I mean, that's good in itself, but still it shows that you still had the desire in the mind. And that you could slip up at any time. So that's why the samadhi is important. Because the samadhi helps to calm the mind. And it helps you to endure pains and other types of things going on around you because you've gained some level of tranquility. So that even the thought to want to break a precept wouldn't come into your mind if you're sitting in a good tranquility, like, first jhana, or even just a good state of present moment awareness. How many of you have ever had a meditation where you got so peaceful that you thought, oh, I wish this would last forever? Only one, two, three. So at that time, the last thing that would come into your mind is go out and, cut a chicken's head off, or even, to do any negative action, right? Or go rob a bank. No, because you're perfectly content. But you can't stay in samadhi forever. That's the problem. That's why even samadhi is not enough. Because when you come out of the concentration, if you haven't developed wisdom, samadhi is simply like pushing the head of a jack-in-a-box toy down into the tin box and putting on the lid. So you don't see the head as long as it's in the box, but when you take the lid off, what happens? Boing, pops back up, right? Jack-in-the-box. So that's because the spring is there, still there. And so if you're just, like concentrating on the breath with the idea to somehow forcibly quiet your mind, it has a similar effect like that. It just pushes those thoughts down in the unconscious, but doesn't weaken them really. And when you come out of the meditation, they can come back up, sometimes with a lot of power. So that's why wisdom plays the important part. That wisdom is like going down into the jack-in-the-box with a pair of wire cutters and cutting the spring. Let's say if you attain Sotapanna, you cut the spring 1/4 through. And so the next time it comes up only with 75% of its former power. And when you reach the level of once returning, it's like cutting another 25% through the wire. It comes up again only with half its power. And when you reach the third stage of anagami, it's cut through another 1/4 and it only comes up with 25% of its power. And then finally with the stage of arahant, it cuts totally through it. And then when you take the lid off the box, nothing comes out. That means the head represents I, me, and mine. Look at me, along with its greed and hatred and all of its habits. So that's just a kind of an analogy to show how these stages of wisdom and skillful conduct and concentration, how they play their important path in living and dying with awareness. So when we live with awareness and live in a skillful way with the Dhamma, when we die, we'll have that awareness with us. Because again, how you live is the way you're going to die. If you live your life just full of greed, hatred, and delusion, and fears and other type of things, when you die, again, the mind is not just going to go poof and disappear. It's wishful thinking. But that's a very strong, powerful energy, those accumulated thoughts, especially the accumulated ego. And it's a power that will project itself into some other place to carry on. It's to work out that kind of karma. So friends, that's what I wanted to share with you. And if any of you have any last questions, we have time for maybe a question or two, or maybe somebody from the out there in virtual land.
You can write also.
If any, you could just raise your hand if any of you have a question, your final question.
Bhante, I have a question.
Okay.
So my understanding is that sila is the right conduct,
Skillful conduct
skillful conduct.
in accordance with the law of karma. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Bhante.
Because actually the word sila comes from a word like sitala in Sri Lankan language, to cool down. So it means to cool yourself down. Because when we break the precepts, we're on fire with greed, hatred, and delusion. When we go out harming and killing others, stealing, lying, cheating, raping, pillaging, and plundering, that means your mind is on fire. And so to cool down is the practice of sila, to cool that down.
So Bhante, it could also be the Hindi word, which is shital. Maybe shital, because that also means something to cool down. So,
Yeah, Hindi and Pali, Sanskrit and Pali, there's some similar connections with that, with some of the words. Anyway, before we finish, before I forget it, I just wanted to mention one more thing about one of the best ways to integrate, the practice of the teaching, and especially of the meditation, and how to train yourself to be able to come back to reground and recenter in the present moment, is the practice of the M&Ms, which means how do we practice Dhamma in the daily life? Now, a lot of people practice meditation once or twice a day, but then the other times of the day, they might not be very mindful. And so they go throughout the day without sort of remembering the Dhamma too much. And then so they accumulate a lot of stress and so on. They go home and they have to spend most of that period just, calming down and so on, because they spend the day accumulating lots of different stresses. So the practice in M&Ms, the minute meditation, is a practice where you train yourself to stop every hour for 1 minute. Could be longer, could be a little shorter, but let's say 1 minute. And you just stop whatever you're doing. Stop that neurotic push to the future. So you finish one little job or assignment, before rushing to do something else, pause. And just take a deep, slow breath. Feel your feet grounded on the floor, and just remind yourself, I'm just standing. Kind of just let go of that future and try to reconnect with the present moment. And taking a couple of deep, slow breaths is the best way to do that, because that really kind of slows down the mind when you're taking a deep, slow breath and holding the breath in the lungs several seconds. And you let out the breath. You might have forgot what you were thinking about already. And then you go about your business again. But in that 1 minute, you can also practice metta. If somebody hurt you in the last hour and you have some ill will, practice right effort and replace it with metta.
Forgiveness.
Yes, forgive yourself also if you did something unmindfully. So to remind yourself to do that every hour. So actually there's apps for that now, and there's, you can program your whatever watch or something to make a little, croak like a frog or a bird, The reminder, oh yes, do an M&M, stop whatever you're doing. Because for 1 minute, anybody should be able to stop and pause for 1 minute. Because we waste a lot of time during the day anyway, just repeating useless things. Or because we're unmindful, we had to stop and redo something that we did. So that's one of the, and so if you do that every day, if you can do that 6, 7, 8, 9 times, 10 times a day, then at the end of the day, you'll be more relaxed because you'll have released stress and tension as you're going along through the day. So it doesn't accumulate at the end to really a strong thing. And when you go home that evening, then hopefully you would have more energy or want to sit and meditate than in the evening. Okay. So anyway, our friends have come to replenish our physical food. You know, we've had a lot of mental food now in these last 3 days, and so out of their compassion, they came and want to supply us with the material food. So these are the two types of food. I mean, there's other types of food, but you know, we eat material food to keep our bodies strong and healthy, and we practice meditation, which is the mental food. Practice the Dhamma, which is our mental food, to give our mind strength and energy to apply the right efforts and things like that. Okay, friends, so this is sort of officially what?
One small, like, I know you already answered, but you can just expand, like.
Do you have a Buddha puja prepared already?
No.
You want one? No need? On a net?
On a net.
Okay.
The question is, do you have some tips to help us when we feel we don't want to sit and meditate when we are agitated? I think you answered M&Ms. That's the question.
Yeah, very often, you know, especially we had a rough day, this and that. The mind's always trying to make up excuses why it's too tired or why it doesn't have time to meditate. And it's very interesting. You know, it's easy to start bad habits and do things that are bad for you, but hard to give them up, right? And like if you start smoking at a young age, it's hard to give it up, or using bad language or whatever. And it's difficult to start to do things that are good for you. Like how many years have you been thinking about to meditate or do yoga? People keep procrastinating. I'm sorry. People can't see. But easy to give them up. Because how many of you started a yoga practice or meditation and then, you know, after some time stopped it for a while because of whatever other reason? You know, so it's very interesting how that works. So anyway, to try to answer that question, the contemplation of death is important. That's why the Marana Sati, to know that if we die before our mind gets purified, that means if we still have these strong habits of laziness and we still have these other, you know, akusala type of thoughts and so on, that then, you know, our rebirth or the next, the future is also going to have more of that. So it's a motivation, and we don't know when we'll die. Because again, there's a saying, tomorrow or the next life, we don't know which will come first, right? A lot of people are planning out the future. They were dead the next morning, especially nowadays with this crazy virus that's going on. You know? A week ago, people didn't know, you know, they weren't even sick, and then some of them are dead within a week. You know, I like nowhere. So anyway, it's so the actually, you know, the contemplation of impermanence and so on is one of the traditional goad to stir you off your seat, you know, to overcome the type of laziness, and to know that nobody's going to do it for you, you know. You can have servants that bring you your dinner and do all kinds of things in your house, but no servant is going to be able to make you meditate in your mind. Only you can do that. Even the monks can't force you to meditate. We can tell you how to meditate, encourage you to meditate, but each person, they've got to, motivate themselves to do it.
Bhante, I have a question. It's Kanti.
Kanti.
Can you hear me, Bhante?
Obligate do it, man.
Bhante, my question is, this is a question about awareness. When awareness expands, to me it feels like what is shown in the movies, sometimes space expanding. It's like being in outer space and expanding. So my question is, when you're feeling this expansion of awareness, does that finally lead one to stream entry? Is that a higher level of chitta?
Yes, it could if it's imbued with the right wisdom. People took LSD back in the 60s and had expanded awareness, but it didn't do them a whole lot of good, most of them. It might have got them interested in meditation, like even myself, but that alone, expanding the awareness, you can just say, oh, that's cool, wooey wowie. It may or may not lead to stream entry. So, that's why it has to be supported by wisdom. Or a person could think that that's God, the state of expanded awareness, like infinite space, which is a formless jhana, right? Or infinite consciousness. These are just formless jhanas. They're not enlightenment. But a person, some of the Brahmins and ascetics in the Buddhist day took that to be Mahabrahma, But the Buddha realized, even though it's maybe a great state, it's not the end of suffering. So therefore, it's a signpost, yeah, but the ego has to finally dissolve. The ego can be resting in that, oh, look at, I'm a great meditator. Look at, I have empty mind and expanded awareness, but the I is still there. So, that's not the end. So you have to know how to, let that last trace of I and ego dissolve. Then you would experience the stream entry.
Thank you, ma'am.
Manisha will tell you all about it when she sees you. Okay, friends, I think we'll go ahead and finish up now. And I know a lot of you, most of you, you took the 5 precepts, or you took the 8 precepts when you came to the retreat last week. So I'm just going to give you the 5 precepts for those who want to take the 5 precepts when you go home. How many would like to do that? Okay, so if any of you want to join in taking the 5 precepts. So we're going to go ahead and recite the Namo Tassa 3 times.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
And it's all together, the refuges. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami. Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami. You can repeat after me the precepts. Panatipata veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Adinadana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Kamesu miccachara veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Musawada veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Sura mirya majjapama dattana veramani sikapadang samadhiyami. Having taken the 3 refuges together with the 5 precepts, strive on with diligence. By morality they attain good rebirth, by morality they achieve wealth, by morality they attain nibbana, therefore purify morality, skillful conduct.
Thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome, and I hope that you're able to use this, reinvigorated practice, hopefully, to, use it in your daily life and hopefully, improve the quality of your